But we can, of course, see the same thing happening now, and it is actually happening now in local government, that Maori are not content with participating in local government just like everyone else. They want special seats as of right. And there, again, is an end to racial equality and to democracy. And this will be the inevitable consequence of treaty principles in a constitution. And indeed, in that book on treaty settlements, several of the authors spoke of ending the sovereignty of Parliament, the cornerstone of democracy, because that would be unjust to Maori if Parliament continues to be sovereign. And disgracefully, our own Chief Justice has publicly stated on more than one occasion that she considers herself entitled right now to strike down Acts of Parliament, our highest law, if they conflict with her own radical understanding of treaty principles. Now that is utterly disgraceful. As I have said elsewhere, to do that would be as much a coup d'etat as if armed men entered Parliament and drove the members out at gunpoint. And this is our own highest judge saying this, that she considers herself entitled to overthrow democratic principle and overthrow the most ancient principle of our Constitution, the supremacy of Parliament, and to make herself the unelected arbiter of what is and is not permitted in New Zealand. We still pay our taxes, she decides where they go. Why would we have elections? What happened to a judge's oath to do justice according to law? Heaven help us. But just to get back to treaty principles for a second, I should explain that Parliament refers to them, but Parliament has never defined them, and so judges have actually been forced to come up with a definition of treaty principles. Many of the judges, not our present Chief Justice, Elias, nor Sir Robin Cook, both of whom are disgraceful politicians, but many other judges have been more well-meaning idiots whose nice words have inevitably been seized upon by malcontents to justify apartheid. Apartheid, of course, at our expense. How well I remember Materia Toure at a political meeting in 2005. This was when I was standing for the National Party in 2005. Gosh, I'm so glad I wasn't elected. It would have been... Both Parliament and I had a lucky escape. Yes. It would have ruined my life, I think, in numerous ways. But anyway, I was at this particular meeting, which essentially was a meeting of which party will bribe Maori more than any other. And Materia Toure was at that meeting, and she said, and I quote her exact words, which I wrote down, and I've used this quotation quite often since, she said, "Maori want two things. They want independence and they want more funding." And that, in a nutshell, is what treaty principles now boil down to. Maori want everything and they want it at our expense. They want to be independent and they want more funding, some independence. All the treaty principles we hear of now are merely claims for Maori privilege. And even the blandest treaty principles enunciated by judges have some very ominous implications. So, for example, judges have said that the treaty involves a duty on the Crown of fair and honourable dealing with Maori. Well, we wouldn't argue with fair and honourable dealing. Of course there should be fair and honourable dealing. But I would have hoped that the Crown had a duty of fair and honourable dealing towards all its citizens. So what are judges saying when they say that the Crown should behave fairly and honourably to Maori? Are they saying that the rest of us are not entitled to fair and honourable dealing on the part of the Crown? But if we all are entitled to fair and honourable dealing, then Maori are in no different situation from the rest of us. Similarly, with the talk you hear from some judges of a special relationship between Maori and the Crown. Any special relationship between the Crown and one class of citizens automatically puts all other citizens into a second-class position. And judges have also spoken of partners, although very loosely and more or less interchangeably with the word parties. And doubtless judges didn't expect everything that has since been read into their loose language of partnership, but nevertheless judges should not use loose language. They've been irresponsible in doing so, and they have been bloody fools if they could not see where that talk was to lead. Some of our judges are politicians in disguise, most notably our present Chief Justice and Sir Robin Cook, and we must remember also that judges, just like Maori, are engaged in their own quite improper bid for political power. The Chief Justice does so blatantly, of course, but every judge who speaks of the treaty as a living document, an embryo which will grow and develop over the years and so on, every judge who gives us that loose talk is saying essentially that he or she claims the right to rewrite the law and be generous to Maori at the public expense and justify that by reference to treaty principles which are growing all the time. Now, I mustn't start giving a law lecture here, ladies and gentlemen. I'm conscious that I may be starting to do that. But the treaty principles, you read lists of treaty principles and you think, oh, yeah, that's all perfectly reasonable. But the trouble is, treaty principles, the list the judges give, are just vague, bland platitudes. And a list of platitudes can simply lead you anywhere you want to go. There's one other thing I should add at this point, which is that when I speak of Maori claims and settlements with Maori, I should emphasise, and again, this is something you probably know already, that most New Zealanders of Maori descent derive little, if any, benefit from these acts of public generosity. The treaty industry benefits only a small tribal and neo-tribal elite and big law firms. Now, and it's remarkable that the left-wing Green Party should be so keen on the treaty industry because, as Professor Elizabeth Rata says, modern Maori tribes are a neo-tribal capitalist elite, and public generosity simply ends up by enriching this small privileged circle. Now, I'm just as much in favour of social justice as any member of the Green Party, but I don't see that we advance social justice merely by replacing white capitalists with brown ones. And it's remarkable that the Greens, the mortal enemies of the privatisation of public assets, have no such difficulty when it comes to putting public assets into brown hands instead of white ones. Call me perverse, but environmentally conscious as I am, I'm quite looking forward to the day when Maori interests are involved in undersea mining of iron sands, phosphates, oil and the like off our coasts, because that is, after all, much of the agenda behind the foreshore and seabed legislation. At present, some Maori are posing as environmental guardians, but that's not going to last very long. And when environmental protection pulls in one direction and Maori enrichment pulls in another, won't there be some writhing in the Green Party? And the sooner the better. Now, ladies and gentlemen, a few, what's the time? Goodness me. A few more political words. Excuse me. We must recognise where our opposition lies. It's never been huge in terms of actual numbers of human beings. Many ordinary Maori are on our side. They're New Zealanders like us, and they know perfectly well that they are never going to benefit from settlements. Our opposition has its strength in bureaucracy, academia, and now in rich neo-tribal elites. It's sad to see the betrayal of democratic principle by the very people, public servants and judges and academics, whose ancient duty it has been to serve the people and safeguard the best in our civilization. It's sad to see an indoctrinated or fearful public service, and of course it's sad to say sad to see active indoctrination in schools. Our opponents are seriously well-funded and influential and powerful. They are a new ruling caste, but nevertheless their actual numbers are not large. The heart of the country is still sound. I know it is. They know it is. And we can take heart from that. And we've got to distinguish, here's another point I'd like to urge upon us, that we've got to distinguish between what we are against, what we are not against, and what we are actually for. We are against legally enforced inequality, blackmail, division, tribalism, squabbling, the impoverishment of our nation, and an officially enforced cultural program of Maorification. But we've got to distinguish between those radical Maori political claims for special treatment and enrichment, which we are against, and what we are not against. We're not against the Maori cultural revival, which is happening. New Zealand is changing, and we have to be open to change. We have to guide change rather than stop it. It's impossible simply to stand in the way and try to stop change. Change is happening. We've got to guide it in the correct direction. And it seems to me also, if I might, now is the time for healing, as Helen Clark would say. It seems to me that underneath the frightening rhetoric and the very ugly radical Maori and treaty claims which we sometimes hear, underneath that there is actually a strong conservatism which we should not be afraid of, but which we might actually rejoice in and find common ground with. There are often good things, some good things, underneath that frightening rhetoric, because it seems to me that the dream of many Maori radicals, not all, by any means, but all, but underneath the underlying instinct is a yearning for a golden age in the past, a golden age which might never actually have existed, but which nevertheless is a dream which we can all identify with, a dream of small communities, close to the land, environmentally sensitive, self-sufficient, self-reliant. Righto, that's a dream which perhaps never was, but it's not a bad ideal. In fact, it really is close to the ideal which the European pioneers had when they came to New Zealand also. Their dream and our dream, perhaps, was a dream of a New Zealand of farms, small towns, small cities, healthy, strong communities. We have a great deal in common, perhaps, with the underlying ideal of many Maori radicals. How close are we to that dream of that strong New Zealand? It seems to me that we are getting further away from that every day. But incredibly, look, I'm just offering this as a little thought. I think that we might find, I express this in a tentative way, but we might find that underneath the ugly rhetoric and selfish claims, we might find that some of our ideals and those of Maori radicals are not necessarily all that far apart. We have nothing to do with their grudges and their sense of entitlement, but there may be common ground for making New Zealand a better country and trying to restore the dream of all of our ancestors. And I wonder also if this is part of the reason for the popularity of Maori culture, that Maori culture, perhaps I should put that word in inverted commas, it seems to offer one of the few chances for community and meaning in an increasingly atomized, meaningless, shallow society. But of course we don't want it shoved down our throats every moment of the day to the neglect of the high achievements of our own civilization. But we've got to be positive. On the last resort, we've got to be positive. Our task is to rediscover the riches of our own civilization, our own past, to discover for ourselves the wonder and wisdom and beauty of life and civilization in all its glory. We have to be for something. Nature abhors a vacuum, and Maoriness rushes into New Zealand life in order to fill a vacuum, I think, that exists in New Zealand life.